India. It's often known as the subcontinent because it's below the continent of Asia, right? And scientists believe that a long time ago, India moved up and crashed into Asia and pushed up the highest mountains in the world, the Himalayas. Those are at the north of India. This is the Ganges River, sacred for many Hindus. And it's here also just because this picture, I think, shows the busyness, the crowdedness of this country. And this, of course, is the most famous landmark in India, one of the most famous landmarks in the world, the Taj Mahal. So what should you know about India before you make some food from there? You should know that it is one of the most populous countries in the world. I'm jumping around a little bit here. 1.3 billion people. In 4 years, they predict that it will surpass China and be the most populous country in the world. The capital of India is New Delhi. There are many, many languages in India, but the two predominant ones are Hindi and English. Religiously, this is the birthplace of Hinduism. 80% of people in India describe themselves as Hindu, but 14% are Muslim. And there's a lot of tension between those groups, as you may have seen in the news. Other religions like Christianity, Buddhism, pretty small percentages, 1 or 2% or less. Geographically, most of this is a tropical country, is classified as tropical, but they have everything. There's desert in India. There are some of the highest mountains in the world. There's jungle with tigers even. There is like tundra, there's forest, there's plains. They have the whole gamut. Economically, according to Wikipedia, and this surprised me, from about the time of Christ until about the year 1700, India had the largest economy in the world. I don't know for sure if that's true. That's what Wikipedia said. That is not the case anymore. It is classified as a developing market economy. Developing as in getting more advanced. And it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. One of the largest economies in the world, but relatively poor. So if you measure the total production of the country, it's like in the top 10 or 15 economies in the world. But if you look at the average amount of money per person in the country, they're down at like number 120 out of 192 countries, right? A relatively poor nation. What drives their economy? Private consumption. There are a lot of consumers, right? And they buy stuff. Agriculture. This is the second largest producer of foodstuffs in the world. And construction. They are building in their cities, especially, a lot. Long history. History in India does not go quite as far back as it does in China or Egypt, but this is one of the oldest civilizations in the world. The Indus civilization goes back 3,500 years, roughly. There were different groups moving in and out, but in about 1526, the Mughal Empire was founded, unifying pretty much all of this territory. The British moved in the 1600s. The East India Company started trading, getting tea and spices and stuff from India. And finally, the British directly took control in 1858. India became the crown jewel of the British Empire. And it was in the British Empire until 1947, when Mahatma Gandhi led the resistance, the nonviolent resistance movement to the British, which finally succeeded. The British gave them their independence, and then because there was war between the Hindus and the Muslims, in India. There was a partition of India from Pakistan. All right, that happened, yeah, also in 1947. Pakistan then, in 1965, the year after I was born, invaded Kashmir, and, which I misspelled, there continues to be tension between those countries, between India and Pakistan, over Kashmir, among other things. If there's ever a major war again in this world, this is one possible source of it. So, long history, sometimes troubled history, but let's move on to food. When we talked about Italy, I told you that Italian food often only uses 4 or 5 ingredients. Indian food tends to be more complicated. There will sometimes be 15 or 20 or more ingredients in an Indian recipe. They use a lot of spices, very colorful spices. Some of the common ones: cardamom, coriander, cumin, fenugreek, turmeric, saffron, which I pictured here, the most expensive spice in the world, more valuable by weight than gold. Chilies, yeah. So if you want to do Indian cooking, you need at least a lot of these things. Speaking of that, though, I'm going to put together spice packets for this recipe because you may not have a lot of these ingredients, and I don't expect you to go fill out your spice racks just for this week. Curry leaves, because curry, right? And then they also have spice mixes like garam masala that are very popular. So some staple foods: rice, lentils, different kinds of lentils, and other kinds of beans, including chickpeas, known as chana. So we're going to make chana masala, chickpeas in a tomato sauce, basically, spicy. Butter chicken is one of the most popular Indian dishes in the world. Samosas, I know some of you wanted to make. That's a deep fried pastry thing. Savory. Naan, the flatbread, very popular. Palak paneer. This uses a cheese with a spinach sauce, and they do different paneers. It's kind of like a cottage cheese. They use it like some people use tofu in different recipes. Aloo gobi is not pictured here. That is cauliflower and I forget what else. And then chaat masala. So, Indian food. It's colorful, it's spicy, I think it's delicious. I hope you have fun making it and that you have a great week. God bless you.